Attention all controllers, attention. We have a code red alert. Everyone already on approach or inside our pattern, holds at the outer markers. Stack 'em, pack 'em, and rack 'em.
Hello and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 84, the Lost episode. Today I'm joined by Seth Miller. Hey, Seth.
Howdy.
And Rollo Veloso. Hey, Rollo.
Hey, what's up?
And I'm Steven Seagraves. And today we're going to talk a little bit about going nuts on United, moving around of some premium service flights, JetBlue starting some premium service flights at Boston, and Seth's crazy trip, and a mouse on Emirates. So let's just jump right in, guys. This nut diversion on United, I guess some more details of this came out. We're recording this on Tuesday. I guess some more details came out on this diversion it was a Rome to Chicago flight that diverted to, was it Belfast?
Yeah.
Over a guy losing his mind over not getting snacks about 15 minutes into the flight, then getting those snacks, and then continuing to rant, and then them deciding to just divert the flight and strand everybody at Belfast because of crew timeout issues. I think they should just, send the guy the bill for everyone's inconvenience. That's my thought.
How much was your time worth,
Did he have a reason?
Yeah, I bill at 100 hours, personally.
You should raise your rates, or I'm too used to New York City time. I don't know. I agree. The guys, there's clearly some issues there. I wasn't there. I don't know the details, but it sounds like it was not a pretty scene. But, and I feel like this is one of the things, like the airlines say they can bill you if you cause a diversion, but I can't remember any story of anyone, anytime they've ever actually tried to collect on that. So I'm not betting on it happening, but.
It just seems crazy to me that someone would go that nuts if that's really, what happened over food. I mean, we had the whole Korean Air incident with the executive. She went to jail, right? Or did she finally get exonerated and taken, let go?
I think she's no longer in jail if she went. I know there was yet another sort of coda to that story, but I don't remember if she actually went to jail or not. I know she was supposed to at one point, but
yeah,
the whole thing is stupid, right?
Yeah,
someone went crazy. They had to divert a plane, and then there was additional mechanical problems, and they pushed back, and they were on the runway, and then they went illegal because they couldn't get out quite fast enough.
Yep.
And it's shitty for everybody.
Because they didn't have enough hotel rooms or something. The United Staff said they couldn't find enough hotel rooms for all the passengers.
Maybe it was that. I also, at some point, someone said something about they couldn't get immigration open, but I don't know if that's true or not.
That could definitely be. I mean, Belfast isn't the most busy airport in the world, so makes sense.
But I don't know. But at the same time, right, most of their flights, I feel like a decent chunk are international just because the domestic stuff goes into the downtown airport, and everything else is either from the UK or from mainland Europe, and mainland Europe's all international into there. Yeah. But, I know the whole thing is bizarre. There was maybe some sporting events going on in Belfast that might have booked up a lot of rooms. Maybe they weren't close enough. The whole thing is ridiculous. I think basically on everybody's part.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
But
I mean, do you think they're doing anything? I mean, does the European Union stuff kick in since the flight originated in Rome? Or
yes, but so you're due right to care, which in theory means you're due meals in a hotel room. But I don't know that you're necessarily due compensation for the delay. I'm pretty sure that the airlines would do a good job of claiming that batshit crazy passenger is not a foreseeable. Right?
It's an act of God.
it's not like maintenance where they could have done it and didn't. It's a little bit of what the hell's going on there.
They should screen all their passengers.
Maybe send out a survey of their dietary needs.
I require nuts before takeoff.
Well, also, the flight was delayed out of Rome, as I recall. So maybe the guy just really had, been waiting far too long to have his warm nuts.
Do we know if the guy was in business class or was he in coach? I'm assuming business class.
I would hope business class if he's fighting over his warm nuts. But
was the passenger a famous blogger by any chance?
Oh
God.
Come on now.
Well, I think I sent you guys a note the other day. I was actually on the flight with the mother of that autistic child.
Yeah.
The whole family. I was on a flight with them, and there was shenanigans at the gate. I was amazed. I was like, this can't be happening.
We're getting upgrades or giving away upgrades or?
She had been, I don't know, her name showed up on the upgrade list, and then it disappeared. And then the guy that was in her seat didn't have a ticket. His ticket was invalid. It was just a whole, mess. And she was like, well, I want to sit by my daughter who's in 29F. And it's like, well, wait a second. What are you going to do? Put the guy that's in the next to her up here? It was bizarre. And it delayed us probably an hour out of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
It was a pain. I got home. I could have stayed on my original flight and got home almost the exact same time. So it was just nuts. So anyway, don't be crazy, people. Be friendly. Be friendly in the air.
I feel like people are it's getting worse no matter where. Like, there's always something going on now with some kind of incident with food related.
Is it worse, or do we just hear about it more?
A little bit of both.
And you're right, because now everything
people feel
gets
more
a tweet.
entitled a little bit.
Yeah, everybody gets a tweet, though, right? It doesn't matter what happens. Someone's going to tweet about it. Because clearly someone was on the plane, and then, one random person tweets about it, someone else picks it up, and next thing you know, it's front page news, even if it's like, plane had, typical delay, whatever, was slightly low on fuel, declared priority landing and landed. That becomes like mainstream news all of a sudden. Like,
it was an emergency met by fire trucks.
Flaps didn't fully deploy. We got helicopters on the scene. Like, I mean, sure, we didn't have a helicopter in Kwajalein, but still.
If they could have had one, they would have.
We would have made them hop the helicopter all the way out of there.
Yeah, it's funny. Quick side story. And I don't know if I told this already, but when I was in Dubai talking to the new flight attendant, the recruits, I told them the story about how we had to make this emergency landing, and I was the able passenger or whatever, and Foz was the assistant. They were like, "Oh my God, that really happened!" It's like they were like very, very excited that there was like a real life thing, and they were asking me all these questions, like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "Well, we just landed. There was no problem, but they had to prepare us, and I was the guy that was going to open the door, and Foz was going to be the blockade guy."
So speaking on those same terms, then, speaking of Dubai, that's a good segue, Rolo. Good job there.
Look at that.
You saw a story about a mouse in an Emirates cabin.
Were you on the plane with the mouse, or you just read about it?
No, I was not on the plane with the mouse. My flights they're rodent free. So it's kind of a weird story. I guess this happened about a week ago, and like there's really the facts are just coming out this week. And I actually read the story in Time Out Dubai, which is odd for a news story, but then I confirmed that there were some newspapers that were talking about it. A flight from Birmingham to Dubai was ready to depart, and
is that Birmingham, Alabama? Is this one of Tim Clark's 200 new A380s to the Midwest, or are we doing Birmingham, England?
Birmingham, England, I believe. Okay. At this time, I cannot confirm, but the person who was tweeting about this was British, so I'm guessing Birmingham, England. And he said that there was on the tarmac, the flight was canceled. He tweeted something like the flights were on the tarmac, the flight's canceled because there's a mouse running around. They went back to the gate, and there was Emirates said they never canceled the flight. They just rerouted passengers on other flights. Apparently the flight attendants were chasing around this mouse for 30 minutes. There were some videos on YouTube, and Emirates denied that it was actually the video, but they admitted that there was a rodent on the Boeing 777, they said. And, I mean, it's a funny story, but, it brings a good question. It's like hygiene on planes, like cleaning and stuff. I remember reading something about the coffee pots and how they're not cleaned well on all airlines. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I certainly think that the water tanks where the water comes from for coffee are disgusting. I also don't drink coffee, but those water tanks are awful.
You talking about the ones up in the galley that's above the coffee? Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? There was actually a story, I think, from JetBlue where they were having problems with the coffee makers, and they couldn't figure out why. And it was only on the A321s, not the A320s, and like they rebuilt the galleys, and there was all these weird issues. And it turns out that the water filters on the newer planes were so much better that they were blocking way more gunk, and they were getting clogged, and so water flow dropped, and so like they literally couldn't, like, you'd go to brew a pot of coffee and like not as much would come out.
Oh,
and they ended up figuring out that it was because the water filters were messed up or were too good or something like that, and they had to and the solution was, I think, just to push more water through, not to get cleaner water because it's not an option. But it was some sort of bizarre story like that. I'm sure I've gotten some of the details wrong, but I know the water filters were the culprit.
I thought you were going to say they took out the water filters.
No, I'm pretty sure they left them in. But again, I don't drink the coffee on airplanes, or at all, really. No.
Or anywhere, right?
I don't drink coffee.
At all.
Well, so, going back to this mouse thing, like, let's say this plane had landed in Australia. Like, it's actually like a quarantine risk then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not sure they care about mice in
England
coming from England to Dubai, but from Dubai to Sydney, that might be a real problem.
Well, have you heard? Apparently, Asiana says they're sterilizing all the planes that go to the Middle East because of MERS.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, they're putting a Korean and Asiana are both going through 10 or 15 aircraft a day, quarantining them for the day, and then cleaning them.
But they're doing like air circulation sterilization and all sorts of random shit.
Yeah, because it's so contagious. And
is it though? I've heard mixed.
I've heard it's pretty contagious.
Okay.
Like if you get coughed on, you probably will get it. Like if you're in the Middle East. So I don't know how true that is, but. Do
they spray that funny spray? Have you guys ever seen that where the flight attendants walk down the aisle and spray stuff?
Oh yeah.
It's like a grenade.
Yeah. I actually had that Cubana from Havana to Orly. They sprayed it at Orly.
Really?
Yeah, I was wondering if they would or not. I guess it's still. I think it's like it's mosquito because it's maybe still considered yellow fever risk or something like that. I don't know, or not yellow fever, some mosquito-borne illnesses. But I gotta say, the chunk of Cuba I was in was a bit of a swamp, so I'm not too surprised.
Oh, but, I mean, so it's interesting. Like, how do you catch a mouse? Do they ever catch it? Because mice are fast, they hide. Like
at this time, they cannot confirm or deny whether the mouse was caught. I think they actually ended up canceling the flight. I mean, they're trying to change the wording around where they didn't cancel the flight; they just rerouted passengers the next day. So it's kind of a weird. I don't know. I mean, that plane could still be infested with the Mickey Mouse.
They're going to catch the mouse and fine him for the cancellation.
That's right. The mouse was upset.
They're going to deport the mouse to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and bring him to Belfast and let him sit with the other guy.
Oh man. So next up, let's see what we got here. JetBlue starting Mint service at Boston. This starts in March of 2016. This is kind of a shift in kind of what we predicted. I mean, I think if you go back to some of our episodes, maybe a month, 2 months ago, we were talking about, possibilities of JetBlue going to Boston, and we were all kind of like, meh, I don't think they're going to take Mint there. And now here they do it. They're going to do San Francisco and LA, and then also flights to the Caribbean. Is that right, Seth? Yeah,
they're doing seasonal Barbados, which I don't understand how Barbados is such a luxury destination, but apparently it is. Because they're also doing it out of JFK seasonally. But yeah, they're bringing on a bunch more Mint planes starting in 2016, and they're going to use that to up frequencies out of JFK, which partly is in response to United pulling out, which I think we're going to talk about in a few seconds here, but also because they think, they can support it. And then they're also going to add the Mint service out of Boston. And they, again, think that there's the sufficient demand for the premium product right around that price point that they can afford, which has the right yields for them. And Boston's interesting because they're not, even though they're arguably the leading carrier out of Boston, they're not the leader on either of those two routes. American has a whole bunch of frequencies to LA, United has a whole bunch of frequencies to San Francisco, like 8X daily versus JetBlue's 3. And American has 4 to LA versus JetBlue's 3. Both routes have Virgin America, and Delta also flies to LA. So there's a decent amount of competition, a decent amount of, things to work against there. The flip side is you could also say the same thing about JFK. Lots of competition, lots of things going on there, except JFK also is entertainment. It's got the financial. It's got all those things that have traditionally supported the premium demand. And Boston has almost none of that. So it's, are they going after the tech market, I guess? Or are they just going after people who have a little bit of extra money and would rather spend about the same amount and fly in business class instead? It's hard to say.
And have they said what price point they're going for? Do you think it's going to be the same price as what Mint is out of JFK?
Yeah, I don't know. They have not officially announced a price point yet. The tickets don't go on sale until the next schedule extension, which will be in mid-July.
Okay.
But I would expect it'll be in that ballpark.
Because I could see them saying, well, we're not going to do $5.99, we're going to do $4.99 or something like that, and making it like $1,000 round trip. That makes sense to me. To me that seems like, especially if you're selling coach for probably $500 or something, you're doubling the price of coach.
I say 500 round trip is probably the low end. Maybe it's 400. I don't know. As a general rule, it's hard for me to find too many sub $200 transcons these days.
Yeah, I agree. So
every now and then it happens, but
I'm just interested to see how much of a premium market there is, on these. United's flying 752s, Boston to San Francisco.
And 73s and A320s, and they got a whole mismatch going on there.
Yeah, it's a lot. My point is it's a lot of seats.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, is there premium traffic or is it just traffic in general,
Right. And so one of the things about the Mint flights is they don't really up the capacity too much versus the JetBlue all-coach 320.
Mm-hmm.
But it does give them the premium seats to sell.
Yeah, so you have that extra revenue that you can bring in.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's cool. Well, then speaking of the JFK stuff and kind of the competition there, United has announced that they're going to move the premium service flights, the PS flights, to Newark. So the flights that were flying JFK LA, JFK San Francisco, are going to move over to Newark, and JFK will cease United operations. This was done with a slot swap with Delta, and United cited competition reasons that there was too much competition and not enough revenue out of JFK, and they stated that they lost money for 7 years at JFK.
Yeah, I don't believe those numbers.
You think it's just a twisting of numbers? They
said, JFK was great and they had great revenue and this and that right up until they wanted to cut it. Right? They did the same thing about Cleveland. Now Cleveland is strong. Cleveland's doing fine. Cleveland's holding its own. Oh wait, no, Cleveland's lost money for a decade. I feel like all those things are twisting of the numbers to make it meet their needs.
Yeah. I mean, so what do you guys think of this? I mean, this is, I know for you, Seth, you fly out of Newark, a mix of Newark and JFK, so you probably don't care. It's going to be PS no matter what.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I'm almost never going to fly it, so I don't really care at all. But I think it's smart for the business, right? As a customer, I could take it or leave it. I'm equally convenient to all three New York City airports, and I don't really care. I think that the Newark terminal is better than the JFK terminal for United, only because the JFK terminal is completely a dump. I'm not saying I think the Newark terminal is great, but the JFK terminal is completely a dump. It has no facilities really at all, except the really overheated United Club.
What about the people that say that people from Manhattan won't go to Newark?
Well, when you've been doing something for 20 years and have never tried the other thing or just so hung up on it, maybe that's a problem. But the reality is a whole lot of the people, right? Newark has millions of passengers a year. They're not all from New Jersey. Exactly. And they're not all connecting. So,
it's quicker to get to Newark. The people that are these premium travelers that are taking car services, it's usually quicker to get to Newark than to get to JFK.
And it's right. Even if it's 15 minutes slower and I can go to Newark and take a nonstop somewhere versus out of LaGuardia to connect or whatever it is, like total travel time is going to be better. There's all sorts of reasons it makes sense. United was basically running as an O&D market, and part of it was they had a little bit of feed from Dulles at one point, but that was stupid too, because the premium passenger was just going to go nonstop from Dulles to the West Coast. Someone was talking about could JetBlue route Mint passengers from Dulles to the West Coast via Boston or New York? And it's like, well, yeah, but the vast majority of customers aren't going to fly an extra 2+ hours on what should be a 6-hour trip.
Yep.
At least, certainly not the ones that are willing to pay for the premiums of getting there.
And people touting that JFK was, there's a bunch of Star Alliance connections. Well, the only ones I can think of that you couldn't get out of Newark are South African, which I'm not even sure the PS flight's even timed with that unless you wanted to spend a partial overnight there. And I'm trying to think about TAP. No, TAP's at Newark.
TAP's at Newark.
Copa.
Oh, come on. Give me a break.
which has nonstop service from Chicago, Houston, Denver, San Francisco, and Los Angeles.
Yep.
Just, for what it's worth. No, right. So yeah, South Africa. There was one other that I don't remember now.
Turkish.
Okay, yeah.
You can't get Turkish.
You couldn't get Austrian, but you can now.
Yep. So I mean, it's not like there's not like
no way.
Right,
the one, and here's the other thing. It's like, yes, those that feed is useful. They're
Singapore.
Sure, but from San Francisco or Los Angeles, you already have Singapore.
That's true.
Right. That's the other thing, right? Is how many of the flights can't one of the guys who lives in Germany was saying, one of our friends was saying, he's upset now because he can't do the PS flight and then get the early Munich departure that lands in Munich at like 8 a.m. He can't get back to Munich to be straight into the office in the morning anymore because he can't connect via JFK anymore from the West Coast. It's like, and that's a reasonable concern. It's a reasonable complaint, right? You only get into Munich at like 9:30 instead of at 7:30 or something like that. I'm guessing that's not like, there's not enough people like that are just going to go say, well, screw it. Now I'm going to fly on, oh wait, there's no other options anyways.
Yeah, because it's not like the Delta flight. If you were to take Delta.
Is there a Delta flight?
I think they fly no, they only fly Atlanta, Munich. Never mind. Right,
there aren't any other options. I mean, if you're connecting from San Francisco, you can do the Atlanta flight, but it's one of those things where United sort of has found routes. The feed across didn't really make much sense, and now with the ATI especially, they can push people to all the routes that make more sense via Newark. The nonstops from all the other destinations will still go nonstop, and they'll still share the revenue. And for the people going to Europe and the people going to Israel, the people going to India, they now get a flatbed throughout the trip. And those are people paying serious premium cash.
And you talk about the Newark facilities. If you're in Terminal, C, it's not that bad. I mean, yeah, one of the, C2 is pretty much a dump. But
that Heineken bar still out at the end? That was actually pretty good for a while.
for a while, but the OTG thing, I'm not a huge fan of it. You know, the new iPads and stuff. I'm not a huge fan of
I
it.
hate that.
But at least I have more food options. JFK had nothing. I mean, it's like the LaGuardia thing. You know, the United section of LaGuardia, it's an Annie Ann's and like a little like prepackaged sandwich shop. That's your only options once you're
Oh
through
yeah, you
security.
absolutely had to buy food outside security.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I would much rather have, if I'm on a long flight, I would much rather have facilities where I can, you know, buy, you know, a halfway decent meal before I get on the plane, especially on a transcon. And then I get the PS service now too, because if you look at the Newark routes right now from San Francisco and LA, it's kind of a crapshoot what you get. You might get a 752 that's internationally configured, but you might also get, you know, a 739 that doesn't have any in-flight entertainment.
Yeah.
So it's an upgrade for a lot of passengers too.
Yeah. No, I really think it is. There's a certain number of people that are feel that they're wed to United and wed to JFK. And those people are going to lose, right? If you live further out on Long Island and you want to fly United, this is shitty for you.
Yep.
You know, depending on where you're going, either you suck it up and take the extra hour of car service through to Newark, you fly via LaGuardia, or you find a new airline. And at some level, all the airlines will always cut some passengers out when they make a change, and that's just part of the business.
Yep. And you know, if United thinks there's going to be too much competition at JFK, or if there's not enough revenue being generated there, then it makes sense to not fly there.
Well, and remember that, right, part of this is, A, their lease was up for renewal anyway, so they had to decide now. But B, Mint came along and cut the base fare on all of these tickets down dramatically. And so when United had PS that was in theory profitable, which it wasn't for the last 7 years if we believe all the numbers, right? But if it was profitable, it was based on corporate contracts getting a discount off of a much higher base fare. If the corporate contract discount is off the much lower base fare, all of a sudden United's margins got slashed.
Yep. Absolutely. Have they said what they're going to do with GS passengers that use the GFL at the first class lounge at JFK? Are they going to build one at Newark? Do we know?
Every time I've heard that discussed, the answer is we really, really want to, but we can't find the space.
Well, I think in general they just need another United Club at least, because it's just overcrowded.
I agree, but there's no space.
That an extra terminal extension is not happening, like the
C4 pier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not betting on it happening during my lifetime. Lifetime's a long time. The next decade, I'd be shocked.
Because we've heard a lot about like LaGuardia getting the United Club behind security, and that nothing has happened there as far as I know.
We still have the Central Terminal building contract. Did it finally get bid? Are we still soliciting vendors? That's all right. That's part of the Central Terminal building reconstruction. So.
Oh, well, I thought we were just completely tearing it down and starting over, but
I think there's interim steps that inside security for the United Club is part of that.
I got you. So, I mean, I think something has to be done to relieve some of that congestion, because there's so much congestion at the United Clubs that during peak times, especially the European rush, like there's nowhere to sit, and it's not even worth going in because you're going to stand in line for 30 minutes just to get into the place. So they got to come up with something there, whether it be a club that's outside security or a club that has its own security or whatever. Do something.
Yeah.
And I think that to me would make it, that'd make it a much more feasible proposition. But I think, do most premium travelers expect a lounge? I mean, there was a lot of people at the JFK lounge usually to get on the PS flights.
Well, because everyone in business class on PS gets access, so that was 28 people a flight.
Yep. Do you think that policy carries over as well? Do you think they're going to?
I think they said that explicitly.
Yeah. So then you definitely got to do something. I mean, now you're going to have 2 flights. That's 56 people extra in the lounge
in any given hour.
There's also, I don't know if this is a rumor or Foss just making this up. He said that they might do away with memberships.
Well, they just raised the membership price.
Well, it's funny because he said that, and like the next day they raised it. But he was saying, like, we were in the Austin United Club, and he's like, yeah, they might do away with it and only allow premium travelers, and I guess if you have like credit cards.
Yeah. I've heard discussion that they would get rid of membership in general, and the only way to be a member would be through the credit card. In some ways it makes sense to sort of just streamline the membership process. And obviously they think they're getting better return from those customers via Chase than selling directly. But, I can see some problems with that also.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm a little sad because I kind of like the idea of flying into JFK. It has some kind of, there's an aura about it. I don't know. But then you get to the terminal, you're like, well, that's just urine. It's just, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's good for the business. I liked PS well enough out of JFK. I mean, it was the one of the nice things it had going for it, and especially now that there's pre-check in that terminal, is like it was relatively calm
Yeah.
You're guaranteed relatively low crowds, relatively little hustle and hubbub and whatever. The flip side of that is because there was nobody there, you couldn't get any services, but at least it was a relatively calm experience. Newark rarely has that sort of calm feeling, but, it's business. They can't keep every route forever, and I can understand why they say those don't make sense anymore.
Yep, absolutely. What else do we have here? Let me see. Oh, Seth, you had some news about Seventh Freedom flights. What is this?
Yeah, Seventh Freedoms are fun.
Can we tell everybody that I don't know what the news is? So my reaction, we're standing by for my reaction.
Seventh Freedom means a flight from from one country that is not where the airline is based to another country where the airline is not based.
So like Emirates, leading in that category, most likely.
Now, Emirates mostly has Fifth Freedom flights because they all continue on to Dubai.
Oh, so you have to continue on to your
the
home
Dubai,
country?
Milan, JFK flight is a Fifth Freedom flight. It continues on.
What about Hong Kong, Bangkok? I mean, everything
continues on to Dubai.
Okay.
What if, hypothetically speaking, a European airline flew from the United States to the Caribbean?
Doesn't British Airways already do this in South Africa?
They have a subsidiary Comair that does it, but yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Comair is a BA licensee or whatever. They put BA on the side of the planes, but it's by Comair. And it's technically a South African carrier.
So if Aerolíneas flew Boston to LA.
Well, it'd be Boston to, say, Canada.
Oh, a different country.
Different country, right?
Sorry.
But never continued back to Buenos Aires.
Okay.
Or, I don't know, Norwegian Airlines flew from JFK to Guadalupe.
Is that the news?
Yeah, it's being announced Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. So I'm a couple minutes early here, but as long as you guys don't actually share this publicly until tomorrow morning, I think I'll be safe with the embargo. Norwegian Airlines is launching service from 3 U.S. cities to Guadalupe and Martinique. And
but they're not continuing on to
They're
Norwegian?
not continuing back to Norway. They're going to base 737s in the United States to serve these routes. And Air France does something similar, where they have, I think it's A320s, but out of Miami that does the sort of milk run through the Caribbean. But Boston, JFK, and BWI to Guadeloupe and Martinique a few times a week each from each place. It's going to be interesting.
Do they already have approval?
They don't need approval. It's
Why?
a Seventh Freedom route, which is included in the Open Skies Treaty, to which the United States and Norway and France are all party to, and Guadeloupe and Martinique are considered French territories.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So KLM could fly to St. Martin if they wanted to?
sure. And that's not even Seventh Freedom because St. Martin is technically, I think it's still considered part of the Dutch protectorates. They did some weird stuff with that recently where it left one place and became another, and I don't remember exactly how it went. But part of the reason this works is because the 2 destinations chosen are in France, even though they're in the Caribbean. So my understanding is, and I'm hopefully going to get some answers tomorrow morning to make sure of this, but is that they're covered by the Open Skies Treaty. And there's very little competition. There's, I think, out of Miami, American Airlines has a couple flights, but that's it.
So let me ask you a question. It wouldn't work right now, but let's say when Hong Kong was still British, could BA or Virgin say, well, we're going to fly Newark, Hong Kong? Can it be covered under the Open Skies Treaty, I guess?
If it was still considered British, yeah, I would think so. I don't know if it was, I wonder if it was actually still considered British, if it was considered British for air purposes, even when it was a British protectorate or colony or whatever they called it. Because that doesn't always carry over, but with these 2 islands it does, as far as I know. So it's interesting, right? These are one of the, the fight the news has always been about the US-3 versus the ME-3, but Norwegian has always been part of this Open Skies fight. And now, they're coming along and making a mess. So they're going to sort of distract from the Middle East 3 for a little bit here. I wonder, maybe Qatar Airways give them $2 million to distract everybody for a little bit. State money, so you may as well, use it as you see fit.
Can you kind of expand on what you mean by Open Skies? Now, does that Open Skies Treaty say that any European carrier can fly to their European area, or what does that mean?
So, the treaty between the U.S. and Europe, or the EU, it also includes Iceland and Norway, as amended in 2011. I actually did some research on this today because I was shocked when I read the press release the first 3 times. Says that basically any airline flagged in any of the member countries from either side can fly point to point between the 2 which is, just sort of normal flights. So any of them can fly from the U.S. to Europe or Europe to the U.S. from their home country. And then also 7th Freedom routes are permitted. And the 7th Freedom routes were I think they were cargo only and then eventually migrated into being passenger. But those allow these flights that are things like, a Norwegian can fly from, Copenhagen to the United States, because even though it's a Norwegian airline, not a Danish airline. And so they're just sort of taking that a step further and saying they're flying from France to the United States.
So theoretically, they could say, well, we're going to fly from Guam to Papeete.
I believe so.
To Tahiti, basically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that would be the U.S. to France.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So the United States can't reciprocate, because all we can do is say, well, we're going to launch flights to Europe, but it's mainland Europe. Now, if we had like some.
Well, no, in theory.
Diego Garcia? Newark Diego Garcia.
So, right, but I also think that, it doesn't have to start and end in your home country. It just has to start and end in member countries, right? So 7th Freedom, a U.S. carrier could theoretically set up shop and fly Frankfurt, Paris, if I'm reading it correctly. I don't know why any of them would, but I think that would be viable.
Well, I mean, they have a real first-class cabin. That'd be a start.
Yeah.
No one's willing to pay the
service so much worse.
I
don't know. It's a weird situation. And again, I have to, say preface, but I've already said it all, but sort of preface on my statements with this is what I think is happening. I'm going to get clarification tomorrow, and then I'll have better answers, and it'll be by the time I write this up and have some stories published, it'll be, hopefully, all these questions will be answered. But that's my understanding as of right now in terms of how this is all working. And it's a crazy move. When you think about it, right, Air France does sort of do it, so it, but it makes sense for them because it's their routes. But seeing Norwegian pick it up, I guess they're just a couple days a week. They're relatively leisure and VFR routes, so it's hard to see a ton of business there. But Norwegian's bringing in their 737s that have Wi-Fi. They're going to have no IFE, but they're going to have a decent product. It's a little tight, but is what it is. And all of a sudden, they're sort of establishing a beachhead here. Like, can they build up a U.S. base? Right? They're actually going to base the flights and the crews here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Was like, do you think the crews will be based in the United States? And I guess they'd have to be.
They have to
make it work.
Yeah.
And do you think? I mean, this is kind of like the Micronesia fleet, right? I mean, that United has. So you could potentially run into a problem where one of these flights gets stuck, and you're stuck on Guadalupe for a week
while they try to fix the planes or ferry one across. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's mouse on board.
Yeah. Island hopper of the Caribbean.
Yeah. Or if they find a wet lease somewhere and back it up. I mean, right. If there's one thing Norwegian's good at these days, it's finding wet lease aircraft on short demand.
Yeah, because they can't keep the 787s in the air.
Right.
Maybe they could use one of BA's non-ETOPS planes and
by the 8-hour trip to Bermuda.
Wait, so I found an airport that would be possible for the U.S. The Reunion.
Reunion. Oh.
Yes, Roland Garros Airport.
Yeah.
RUN. There we go.
From there to where?
From where to the U.S.? I don't know, 7879 or something.
Do you know where Reunion is?
Yeah.
Okay. It'd be a very long flight.
Somewhere. Yeah. 345s. Get a couple of wet lease 345s. Boom. You're in.
It's like out near Mauritius.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very long flight.
Okay. Isn't there who flies? Doesn't someone fly there? I can't remember who it is.
There's
a lot of air flights.
Air France.
There's a flight from Bangkok on Air Austral, I think.
Air Austral. Yeah, that's the local carrier. They were the ones that ordered the 800-seat A380.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
They canceled the order.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's those guys. Yeah, I don't know. This is really interesting news to me. The other thing that's interesting about it is like it could be argued that there's no business there and there's no reason, so like the U.S. airlines shouldn't care. But of all the airlines that have sort of made a market out of finding niche Caribbean service, JetBlue is probably the best right now. And the sort of 2 or 3 a day kinds of service to random off islands is the thing that they love. And they've been a huge supporter and defender of the open skies because they get so much feed from the ME3. I'm wondering how much this will piss them off.
Because one of these flights is from JFK, right?
Yeah, JFK gets the most service. It's sort of, like 4X weekly from JFK and 2X from each of the other two kind of thing.
Well, I guess, when you think about it, I guess Norwegian's really getting their gate space usage up because that 787 mostly isn't there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, someone else suggested to me maybe, they move over to T7 and take over United's gates. Because T1 is crowded and is a mess. T7, as much as we all hate T1, or hate T7, T1 I think is worse than T7.
Yeah, it's true.
unless you're flying Lufthansa with lounge access.
Yeah.
Some people like the new Alitalia or Air France lounges too, but I think the terminal's a dump inside. So you don't have lounge access. There's no concessions really inside security. T7 at least has that like Wolfgang Puck something or whatever. There's like that one weird restaurant.
Well, I mean, that was part of what we were talking about with United moving PS, right? I mean, Delta's giving up some of their Newark slots, right? So they're killing off the Newark London Heathrow flight that they were doing for Virgin.
Right.
But do we know what else they're just giving up landing space and that's it?
I imagine they're going to cut some frequencies to Atlanta or Detroit or something like that.
But they're happy to have JFK because...
Yeah. Right. This is sort of like the Delta US slot swap over LaGuardia versus DCA.
Yeah.
Both were really happy with the decision, although I can't believe US, gave up so many slots just to get so few at DCA that they ended up having to cede a bunch of in the merger. But still, I think that's one where both parties have got to be really happy with what they're giving up. Delta was basically running a bit of connecting feed and this Heathrow flight that they'll backfill with the Virgin partnership. They're also giving up a LA flight to Heathrow that they're going to backfill with Virgin.
I wonder if they'll kill the Newark Paris flight.
I hope so. I'm tired of seeing those wide bodies there. There's my rant. I saw like 3 of them there. They got annoyed.
What do they do, like London, Amsterdam, and Paris?
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see. But I know it's interesting. I mean, I made the joke earlier today. The dartboard strikes again, right? Delta threw a couple routes up there, didn't like them, pulled them back. This is sort of just a swap with Virgin, so it's not completely the Delta dartboard, but it is a little bit.
It's a little close. Well, didn't we say that they're eventually? That's one story we forgot to cover before the shows. Delta is going to eventually give up the Seattle Haneda slot.
Oh yeah, they decided after fighting, like, maybe not.
Yeah, it's just not going to work for us,
So it's a little bizarre that they fought as long and as hard as they did. I mean, I guess you make decisions eventually, but why do you spend so much of your legal capital and their sort of PR capital fighting for it, only to give it up like 3 weeks later?
And do you think American is actually going to be awarded that slot?
Yeah, it's been decided.
Oh, it has. Okay.
Hawaiian may continue to protest, but when the DOT ruled that Delta was going to keep it originally, they said, and if you give it up, American gets it.
Huh.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And American's going to run both Tokyo routes from LA.
Yeah. I just don't see it working because JAL already has that flight. And ANA. So whatever. I guess they think they can do it.
JAL and American get to joint venture on it.
True.
Does JAL have LA or I thought JAL has San Francisco.
They have San Francisco, but I thought they also had an LA flight. Maybe I'm thinking of ANA.
I think you're thinking of ANA.
Okay. Yeah. But still, I mean, it's a little strange.
Yeah. For the time, the flight times are both shitty and great. I like the midnight departure out of Haneda that gets in at 6 p.m. in LA. I actually really thought that was convenient if you're going to the West Coast.
Well, does it throw you off at all? Because, I mean, you want to sleep on that entire flight, right? And then you wake up and it's 6 o'clock, I'm not staying awake to win.
Yeah, but, I slept for 4 or 5 hours. I was up for 4 or 5 hours. You slept for another 4 or 5 when you land, and then you go to bed again. I mean, there's no good way to jump 9 hours of time zones and not have some jet lag, but I kind of like being able to land, do a few things, and go to sleep. And that's essentially what that gives you.
See, now, the reason I like the daytime flights is like the evening flights out of Narita is like you have a 6 p.m. departure out of Narita to San Francisco. You land at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Why do you sleep on that entire flight? And it's like completely the jet lag. I don't eat the meal. They just sleep till landing.
Yeah, I understand. It's interesting that the ANA version of the flight, at least, the meal service immediately out of Haneda was like a tiny snack. The full meal is after you wake up.
Interesting. What time does it land?
Like 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m., -1.
Yeah, interesting.
So.
I have to try it once.
Yeah. It's a fun line. I highly recommend it.
So
I like all lines.
The last topic is your crazy trip that I recently just got back from.
Yeah, it was fun. I mentioned a little bit earlier the Havana to Orly segment. The Aleutian IL-96 on Cubana is an interesting experience.
I am looking forward to pictures. I hope you took some.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of pictures. So I know we're running a little long here, and I haven't actually had a chance to write up the story yet, so I don't want to tell too much of it about the whole trip. But the trip was basically I was in California and Miami, overnight in Cancun, 3 nights in Havana. The flight to Paris was one of the nights. 4 nights in Paris for the Paris Air Show. A night in Iceland because why the hell not, and then home. So it was 14 days, 8 different beds. It was a rough one, actually. It was great. It was a lot of fun, but it was exhausting by the end. But the IL-96 has 2 sets of doors forward of the wing. like many wide bodies do.
Mm-hmm.
You board through 2L, the second set of doors. There's a galley up front. There's no galley in the back. All the food service for the entire plane is done from the galley at the front. And there's that little cabin between 1L and 2L. It's curtained off, and you are decidedly not allowed access. I asked, what do you think's in there?
Cigars?
I have no idea what they possibly... I mean, I have plenty of speculation about what they might have up there, but I have no idea what they keep in that space.
So wait, was 1L, like, was the galley at 2L?
Yeah. So it's forward of 2L, but it's at 2L.
So did they take any food up there or anything?
I didn't notice. If they did, it could have just been for the pilots. Right, obviously the cockpit's up there, but there is a whole chunk of airplane that no one has access to.
And they didn't during the loading, you couldn't see up there? Or
no, when I look back at my pictures after we were getting off, the window blinds are all closed.
Could it just be like crew rest?
In theory, yes, but we had a crew flying over deadheading with us, and I actually saw one of them opening a closet in the back, which like was normally where overhead crew rest would be. It's like, wait a minute, do you guys have crew rest back here? He laughed at me. It's like, no, and I looked around and we had 3 pilots sleeping in business class, so I don't think it's crew rest. And if it is, it's a huge space for crew rest, right? I mean, it's equivalent of like
jail?
4 or 5 rows of business class. What'd you say, Rollo?
The mouse jail? Like
The mouse jail.
So what was the? I mean, how did you say they decidedly are not allowed access? Did they like tell you that specifically?
Oh yeah, that guy was not happy when I asked. One of the flight attendants was like,
wow.
well, you're right. I'm like awkwardly the one American on the plane, being a complete ab geek dork and taking pictures of everything and like pissing people off anyways. But I said, in my broken Spanish and his stern English glaring at me, can I go up there to take some pictures? And he was not amused. There was a head shake, there was a finger waggle, there was a whole lot of no going on.
You should have asked, can I visit the cockpit?
Well, that's what I said. It's like, can I go up and take some pictures of the cockpit? And I got nothing. I got hard rejection. And he stood up a little straighter when I asked to say no. Like, I don't know. I was definitely not going to be allowed access. I have the feeling if I pressed the issue, I would have been physically, a hand would have come out to stop me.
Is that where they keep the chickens and the goats? I mean, everyone talks about that kind of stuff. I mean,
I didn't hear any barnyard sounds.
Oh, now I want to know.
I really want to know. And in retrospect, I was going back and watching some of the pictures I have a video of the safety video, and it's awful. It's horribly shaky and not worth watching, except that it's hysterical. And what it looks like is the original Russian animation, because it's an old Aeroflot plane, dubbed over in French and Spanish. But that version shows seats up front.
Well, you think, the Castro family was up there?
Well, I don't know, but I got the impression that it's like always like that.
Oh, well, I don't know.
And it could still be because it's, the Air Force One-ish sort of layout, and if they need to use it, they do. But it was interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the 2 diplomatic couriers on the flight sitting, across the aisle from me seemed to think it was completely normal, so.
Now you have to do like a really detailed write-up because I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I will. But, it was, and I'll tease it out over the next couple episodes. There's tons of stories to tell. It was really a great trip. But, I'm also not convinced. I don't understand why people love Cuba, but.
Well, yeah, that's a whole different topic, but I'm interested to hear what you think.
Maybe we'll have a destination segment next episode or something, and I can talk about Cuba as a destination.
Sounds great. And I can talk about Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Okay, well, I think I'll win.
You already win.
For interesting conversations, I'm not sure about destinations to visit, though. Waukesha sounds, not so bad.
Yeah, no comment.
Do they have, restaurants and plumbing and food that you're willing to eat regularly?
The restaurants are questionable, but the plumbing works, so there's that.
Just saying. Did you get the concern that, walking down the street, any of the buildings might collapse on your head?
No, I do not.
I call that a win.
I agree. Well, let's wrap it up and tell everybody where they can find you, Seth.
I'm Wandering Airman, WNDR.me or at WNDRME on Twitter and Instagram.
And Rolla?
I am on Tumblr.
Whatever happened to Ocho Squares?
Ocho Squares was sold and rolled into Foursquares. Was sold for a undisclosed amount. I tried to forward my domain because I own MundoSurfer.com, and I'm having technical difficulties. I actually tried to do it, so I'm actually looking at a GoDaddy article on how to forward your domain.
So there's your first problem. I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me at badice.com or on Twitter at sseagraves. You can follow Dots, Lines, and Destinations on Twitter at DotsLines, or leave us a comment or follow the show on moredotsmorelines.com. Thanks for listening. And we'll
if
talk to you
anyone
next
has
time.
any ideas about what you think that space in the cabin is used for, a tweet or a comment may earn you a bit of Cubana swag. There may be a couple things. Nothing great, but like little baggage claim tags and stuff like that I might be able to share.
Oh, cool.
I could throw in some amenity kits.
I'm not giving away my Cubana. I'm not giving away the Cubana amenity kit, man. That I fought hard for.
Not a non-Cubana one.
Okay, we'll see. Yeah.
Just what you don't get on Cubana.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right, guys. Have a good couple weeks.
Safe travels, everybody. Take care.
Take care.